with a poem on children written by Khalil Gibran. On Children is a poetic essay written by Khalil Gibran, a Lebanese-American poet. This particular piece is picked from a text titled The Prophet. He brings out high philosophy of life in his simple and beautiful poetic essays. The poem is part of a larger body of spiritual poems that seek to impart wisdom and learning on those who read. On Children is a critique of the usual expectations of parents about their children, and through this poem he asks the parents to have a level-headed detachment. Now let us read the poem on children. And a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you but not from you, and though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable." Let us see the first stanza now. And a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you but not from you, and though they are with you, yet they belong not to you." We can see here that a mother approaches the prophet to know about his perspective on children. The prophet in his opening line says, "Your children are not your children." This might surprise any parent. When we have given birth to them, we have cared for them, why aren't they our children? But he says, parents don't own them. They may have chosen to conceive them, but they don't choose who they are. They have a different role in the great chain of being. As life itself progresses, it longs only for itself, over and over, continuing the cycle of existence as each new child inherits and then passes on the world to another generation, which doesn't belong to them any more than they belong to their parents. Parents are the chosen means or channel by which they come into the world, but they do not design the children. So he says children are not possession. They do not belong to anything or anybody but the future. In the next stanza he says, "You may give them your love but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. Now, what he means here is parents can care for them and love them, but they can't make them think like them. Children come to this earth to play their part in the world. They have their own potential and their own thoughts. And these children need a very different set of thoughts and beliefs to navigate through in the world. Parents may provide shelter to the bodies of the children, but they cannot house their souls. In return for their love and care, parents cannot indoctrinate their thoughts. Instead, let them have their own. They belong to the future, and the children will not inhabit the world that they have emerged from. Instead, they will reshape the world. Parents cannot foresee tomorrow. They can't say what lies in the future. Children live in their own time for which they were created, just as we live in ours. Children are the future, whereas parents are here compared to past. We cannot stop time, nor can we go back as the time moves forward. So, even we should move forward. Instead of teaching them, we should learn from them, if possible, and try to be like them. Parents sometimes want to make their children like them, but they should understand that they have their own destinies to fulfill. So he says children are important to the future, and parents merely should act as guiding lights. Now in the last stanza he says, you are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. In this stanza, the prophet explains children grow up fast, and at a certain point of time in their lives, they prepare themselves to make their mark in the world. It won't be easy for parents to send them out from their watchful care. He uses the metaphor of bow and arrow. Pay attention to the word bows and arrows. The poet here compares parents to the bow and children to an arrow. Just as we use a bow to shoot an arrow at a target, God too uses parents as a bow to help the children achieve their mark. God is an archer who shoots the arrow through the bow. It won't be easy for parents to send the children out into the world. The further the children go, the further parents have to bend and stretch to their limits. And in a wink of an eye, they are off to make their mark. The bending and stretching might be painful, but that pain has a purpose. He says the bending might be painful, but parents, like the bow, have to be strong, because the stability of parents will help the children to fly swift and far, and this will bring joy to the parents. In other words, parents need to be good, stable role models for their children. Parents should teach good values to make them responsible citizens. And God will love not only the children, but the parents also who have given responsible citizens to the world. In total, the poem talks about the responsibility of parents raising children and the future of life, how the parents should view and act in the present. In Gibran's philosophy, love occupies the most important. The meaning of human existence is a conscious and progressive manifestation of that principle or source of everything, the manifestation of which in us is signified by love. This love is the core of human life and the divine. Gibran asks the parents to shower as much love as they can on their children, but never to thirst anything, to let them free to develop and mature to serve their role. Since God is the creator, He is the archer. The parents as bows only serve to send the children, the arrow, swift and far, and help them reach the destination. Here God loves both the bows and the arrows because He is the eternal creator of nature. Now let us see what literary devices or poetic devices has been used in the poem to enhance it. The first one we can see here is the line, "Your children are not your children." This is an oxymoron and also a paradox. Oxymoron is a figure of speech in which two opposite ideas are joined to create an effect. Usually, contradictory terms appear side by side. This contradiction is also known as a paradox. The next two figure of speech he has used here is personification. We see personification in the line, "Life's longing for itself." Personification is a figure of speech in which a thing, an idea, or an animal is given human attributes. They are portrayed in such a way that we feel they have the ability to act like human beings. And he has used a lot of metaphors. For example, "Dear souls, dwell in the house of tomorrow. You are the bows from which your children as arrows are sent forth, and the path of the infinite." Metaphor is a figure of speech that, for rhetorical effect, directly refers to one thing by mentioning another. It makes an implicit, implied comparison between two things that are unrelated but which share some common characteristics. The next poetic techniques he has used here is symbolism. See in the line, "He bends you with his might that his arrows may go swift and far." Here we find symbolism. The symbolism is a poetic style where the poet uses symbolic images and indirect suggestion to express mystical ideas, emotions, and state of mind. And this helps to create meaning and emotions. The next poetic technique he has used is enjambments. In the last three lines of the last stanza, "Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrows that fly, so he loves also the bow that is stable." Enjambment is a thought or sense, phrase or clause in a line of poetry that does not come to an end at the line break but moves over to the next line. Here it means that the same idea is not stopped in the first line but it is carried on to the second and the third line. That is enjambment. So here the poet has used all these poetic techniques or literary devices to enhance the poem and to give it a particular effect. Thank you, children. There will be one more session of question and answers which will be given perhaps in a week or two. Till then, take care, stay safe.